Previously on the Main Street Chronicles, two weary travelers stumble upon the yet-to-open Museum of Imagination while on a cross-country journey. Little did they know, a new journey was about to unfold. After a bit of apprehension about the museum's location, the travelers are welcomed by tour guide and chief archivist Archimedes. It is here that Archimedes charismatically unveiled the world of Imagineering to his new friends. In the last episode, they explored artifacts from the life of Disney legend Marty Sklar. What is ahead for these travelers? Let's tune in and see who they will learn of next. I am so glad that you want to continue on this adventure. We have quite the journey ahead of us. Are you ready to see what I have in store for you next?
Oh, yes, please.
This is so exciting. I had no idea that we would be going on an actual journey.
Did you think this was going to be a quick tour and then be done?
Well, kinda.
Oh, my dear, we here at Imagination Radio Network will always do our very best to take you on a journey each and every time.
Archimedes, what is the Imagination Radio Network?
It is a collection of Disney-based podcasts that will help spread as much Disney magic as possible.
Wait a minute, are we on a podcast?
Oh no, my boy, you are just experiencing the journey that our historians went on for Season 2 of the Main Street Chronicles, The Minds Who Built the Magic. This museum is the physical recreation of their journey, remember?
I do recall you saying that, yeah.
By the way, what are your names? I got so excited with the joy of you two being here that I was extremely rude and I forgot to ask you. Please forgive me.
Of course we forgive you. Right?
Oh, well, of course we forgive you. I'm Walt, and this is Sam.
Oh, thank Merlin!
Thank Merlin.
What was that?
Oh, nothing. You were saying? Walt, be nice.
Well, without further ado, let me introduce to you Walt Disney's first Imagineer, Roger Broggie.
Oh, whoa. So he was the first?
He most certainly was. In fact, when he was inducted as a Disney legend in 1990, then CEO Michael Eisner articulated, any mechanical things you had to do, what you said was, call Roger. He'll know how to fix it. Without him, Disneyland wouldn't have happened.
What kinds of things did he work on?
Well, my dear, Roger was the Disney transportation specialist. And if you look over here, you'll see a replica of a steam engine that bears his name. In fact, on October 21st, 2003, the Walt Disney World Railroad Steam Engine No. 3 was rededicated as the Roger E. Broggie in his honor, and we have a replica of that engine right here. You can even blow the horn, although some guests may not like it since it's so loud. But we're gonna keep it just for fun.
I'm gonna go blow that horn.
Walt, don't... Are you happy now?
Oh my goodness, yes. I am so glad that I had the idea of coming in here. Wow.
Oh, brother.
If you press the button there on the right of the stairs, a hidden screen will illuminate, and our historians will tell you all about Roger's love of trains and a few other projects he worked on at Disneyland.
Roger was a mechanical engineer who is considered Walt's first Imagineer. In 1949, he helped Walt build his own miniature trains in the studio machine shop. Once they outgrew the space, Walt had an even bigger idea. Roger helped Walt design and build a complete backyard railroad at his Holmby Hills home known as the Carrollwood Pacific Railroad. All of this would eventually lead to Roger being a driving force in developing the Disneyland and Santa Fe Railroad.
He also developed the Matterhorn bobsleds and the Disneyland monorail. Walt wanted the monorail to be part of Disneyland's major redevelopment in the summer of 1959, giving Roger and Admiral Joe Fowler less than a year to complete the trains and their guideway. In late November, Roger and WED designer Bob Gurr flew back to Cologne, Germany, where they met with Alwig's engineers. Roger proposed that Alwig build the trains in Cologne in late November, for they needed to be running at Disneyland by the following July. The representatives said this time frame was impossible. They could build the cars in Cologne, but by the time they were shipped from Germany to Los Angeles, by way of the Panama Canal, they'd never meet the schedule. Roger then suggested that Alwig representatives visit Disneyland. He later recalled, during their visit they saw the Viewliner train sets that we had built and said, if you can do that type of work, then you can also build monorail cars in California. Alwig agreed to provide prints and consultants. The company also agreed to send advisors to show Admiral Joe Fowler's construction crew how to build and assemble the concrete beamway.
On top of all those projects, he helped create the Omnimover ride system with fellow Imagineer Bert Brundage. Bob Gurr coined the term, which is a combination of Omni and People Mover. This system was patented in April 1968. Anywhere else in the world, these ride vehicles are called Endless Transit System. The Omnimover was first created for Adventure Through Inner Space, which opened in Disneyland's Tomorrowland in 1967. This system is used in every Disney park around the globe. The Omnimover is a constantly moving ride vehicle that allows the designers to control the line of sight in a show scene by rotating the ride vehicle to the correct position without having to completely theme an entire soundstage.
You know, this is a great example of an individual who started with Walt at the very beginning and was along for the ride until he retired. Who would have thought that Walt's original idea of a scaled model train at the studio would turn into everything that would come later?
Yes, I think this is the perfect example of Walt having to have a lot of faith in his original employees. Roger Broggie's the quintessential person that really had to be comfortable with a lot of different trades. For example, starting off working in Walt's model shop, as that grows into bigger, working with Walt on the Carolwood Pacific, and before you know it, he's helping out create the Disneyland Railroad, and attractions like that have become staples in parks all around the world.
That's really interesting because who would have thought that this mechanical engineer would be creating something that still lasts today in all of the parks around the world? If you think about it, this individual has helped create memories for all of us without him even knowing it and realizing it at the time. I mean, if you take a look at your top 5 Disney attractions, there's a pretty good chance that at least one of those is going to be a classic Disney dark ride with an Omnimover. I mean, I know Haunted Mansion's in there for me. I know it is for Stokes as well, but these are classic attractions that, without this individual and his know-how from being a mechanical engineer, we never would have had these. And if you think about it, he was actually the first engineer. I mean, he was the one who taught everybody.
Which is funny that you bring up being the first engineer, because a lot of people actually dub him as the first Imagineer at that. And going along with the Omnimovers there, absolutely, if you're looking at classic attractions, majority of those are going to have the Omnimover aspect to it. And this just speaks really to his technical mind, that what he was doing right there at the beginning and the onset of Disneyland is still being used to this very day as a viable form of technology for even some of the most groundbreaking rides.
Wow. Honestly, this really is amazing. I never would have thought that all of these things have been tied together by just one man.
Roger was quite impressive. If you take a look over here, you will see Project Little Man.
What's Project Little Man?
Press the button to learn.
In 1951, a year before they would be labeled Imagineers, machinist Roger Broggie and sculptor Wathel Rogers led a team tasked with creating a 9-inch tall figure that could move and talk. Actor Buddy Ebsen was brought in to perform a vaudeville dance routine under the direction of Walt himself, providing movement for the little mechanical man to emulate. The assignment was dubbed Project Little Man, and it would eventually be put on hold for a slightly bigger project, Disneyland.
In the early 1960s, after Disneyland was up and running, Walt was ready to revisit three-dimensional animation. By the end of Project Little Man, however, Roger Broggie had cautioned Walt of the limitations of working with miniatures. Broggie said, "I told Walt that if we were allowed to build full-size figures, we could put the equipment inside the figure. We wouldn't have to go through cables and cams. We could build integrated figures." It wasn't long before Walt thought up a human-sized application. "I want to have a Chinese restaurant at the park," Walt told his Imagineers. "Out in the lobby will be an old Chinese fellow like Confucius, not an actor, but a figure made out of plastic. Now the customers will ask him questions, and he'll reply with words of wisdom." The Imagineers assembled the head and got it to blink its eyes and open and close its mouth. "Now let's make him talk," Walt said. He then instructed the team to begin watching television with the sound off and observe how people formed words. Rogers was the director of the project, and he remembered, "You could always tell who was working on the job. They never looked at your eyes when you were talking to them, always at your mouth. The Chinese head showed promise, but it would never be finished." Walt had his Imagineers drop the project in favor of creating a figure that would move, talk, and look like Abraham Lincoln.
It's really interesting that he was one of the individuals who created yet another piece of Disney technology that has lasted since the inception of Walt's original idea. Without Project Little Man, we wouldn't have the Shaman and Navi River journey, let alone It's a Small World or Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room.
Exactly, and I think that's what really sets Disney apart from all the rest of the competition. I also love that somewhere out there in an alternate universe, there's a Confucius animatronic just sitting in a Chinese restaurant somewhere that we would be talking about instead of the Tiki Room, instead of the Navi River Journey Shaman. But just to get back on track there, this goes right back hand in hand with what we were saying with his work on the railroads. The things here that he's contributing to the Disney company and the Disney parks are timeless. He's working on the originals of these, and the Imagineers that have followed since, in this path since, have been able to build upon that and really improve them for guests to enjoy all the way up till today.
And you want to know something that's even cooler? Is his grandson is still following in his footsteps. So his son followed in his, and now he's following in his father's footsteps. So this is truly a passion for this family of helping bring all of these inanimate objects or all of these stories to life in the Disney parks. So if it wasn't for the Broggie family, we wouldn't have all of the things that we know and love today.
Exactly, and especially with these animatronics, these really are what set Disney attractions apart. They were the first ones to use them to the extent that they did, and it's something that really helps bring the story to life and take the guests really to a completely different world, different reality.
Next time you're at Walt Disney World, keep an eye out for Roger's window on Main Street. Give a little nod to it and say thank you, because without him, all the things we love wouldn't exist.
But where can we learn more about the Abraham Lincoln audio animatronic?
Tune in to the Main Street Chronicles Facebook Live show starting in February to learn more about that, and be sure to tune in each and every week to dive deeper into projects of the Imagineer that our historians will focus on each month.
Hey, what's that thing tucked away in the corner over there?
Oh, that over there? It's the original multiplane camera. Let's listen in to learn more.
Roger first joined the Disney studio in 1939 as a precision machinist. His first assignment was working to install the multiplane camera at the new Burbank lot. He later worked with Disney legend Ub Iwerks to develop rear screen special effects, camera cranes, and high-speed optical printers.
In 1950, he was promoted to head of the studio machine shop, and within 4 years of the shop being under his direction, the shop was able to expand from creating effects for movies such as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to creating attractions for Disneyland. He would be able to merge all of his talents when he created Circle Vision 360, a new film process that allowed the audience to truly be immersed in the scene.
Like many of the original Imagineers, Broggie began his career with the Disney Company working in the studio.
That's a really good point, and that's something that people looking back at history have said about Walt, is that he was a true master of placing people where they needed to be. He saw individuals with a talent even when they didn't know they had that specific talent. And while Roger was a trained mechanical engineer, Walt put him in a position to not only succeed and be successful, but an opportunity to lead individuals and build something absolutely unique.
It goes along with something that I said earlier. I said Walt had to show real faith in his original employees, in order to complete a project the scale of Disneyland that no one really knew exactly what it was going to be besides Walt himself. And Roger Broggie is the perfect example of that. Another thing that I think is really interesting about his work with the studios is how he was able to take his experiences working with things like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and turn that into experiences that guests would have in the park with the Circle Vision films.
And that's interesting because he was trying to take that passion and make it a more of an immersive experience, where now we have the likes of 3D movies and 4D movies, and all of those came from the likes of the technology that was created by Up Iwerks and Roger Broggie. Without these groundbreaking innovators, who knows where we'd be right now. I'm sure we would have eventually gotten to it, but without their forward thinking and Walt's push, I'm not sure if we would have gotten there as quickly as we did.
Well, I'll tell you what. You guys really are doing a great job of showcasing these Imagineers with appropriate artifacts. I can't wait to see what else you have in store for us, Archimedes.
So we decided to choose Roger as an Imagineering legend because he represents blank to us. Stokes, what does he represent to you?
So the word that I kind of came up to describe him with was jack of all trades. I know that's more than one word, but we're going to say it's hyphenated for that. It's funny, we're in the second episode and I've already got 2 technicalities on those words. But where I go with that is he's a great example of somebody that had to be good at a lot of different things in order to succeed. Like we said several times throughout this episode, Walt was really good at putting people in places to succeed, even when they didn't know they could. And Roger Broggie, being technically the first Imagineer, is a prime example of that. Started off working in the studio, working on films, and before you know it, he's creating the centerpiece for the front of Disneyland with the Disneyland Railroad. Another thing, when we were researching this episode, we mentioned he's not well known. He's influential, but not very well known. And I think from looking at working with the train, working with animatronics, his handprint is on every part around the world.
It really is. And that's kind of why I said earlier on in the show that when you're walking down Main Street, give a nod to Roger's window on Main Street, because without him, we wouldn't have what we have and what we love. And it's truly something to sit back and take it all in, because there were only a handful of people working on these projects, and this one man led a lot of them.
So what word would you use to describe Roger?
The word that I decided to use was doer. And let me put some context around that. I picked doer because it really goes back to Walt, and everything we always say goes back to Walt. Walt was a dreamer, and with every dreamer, you need a doer. And without Roger, Walt's dream wouldn't become a reality. And I know I have a few doers in my life, because I feel like I'm the dreamer with everything that we're doing here, and thankfully I have another dreamer over here on the other side of the microphone, and we've got a lot of doers on our team, because our dreams wouldn't become a reality without them. So it really resonated with me, all of the things that Roger was able to work on, because he made the dreams come true. And we always say, Disney's here to create magic, we're here to create magic. Roger put us in a position to make magic, because he made the ultimate storyteller's dreams come true.
It's funny, you always hear Walt referred to as Uncle Walt. When I think of Roger Broggie, I kind of picture like somebody's granddad that can really do anything. You go to him with an idea, you go to them with a project, and he can make it happen. He can fix anything, he can get anything to work. And that's what Roger seemed to do, especially there on the onset of Disneyland. He had that mechanical mind where he could make a lot of different things work, and that really helped Walt get his vision up and running.
That is a fantastic analogy. I know my granddad was a master woodworker, and that was his hobby. But you could take anything to him and he'd be able to tell you the right way to do it. And my dad's the same way. So now that you brought that up, I'd like to dedicate this show to our grandfathers and our dads who were those, you have a problem, let me show you how to fix it, or let me fix it for you because it's going to make your life easier. And you make a really great point. Roger was that. Roger was the let me get my hands on it, let me fix it, and let's make it better.
Tune in next month as Archimedes leads us into a new adventure in the Hall of Imagineering as we learn the told and untold stories of another Imagineer.
You've been listening to the Main Street Chronicles, part of the Imagination Radio Network and a BRS production.
Would you like to go on another adventure?